Hello and welcome to today's KDP University's At Home with Andrew Watts. I'm Trisha, and for the past 5 years, I've moved around Amazon's books team, learning the business so I can share it with authors. Prior to coming to Amazon, I worked as a graphic artist, project manager, and educator. Currently, I'm privileged to work with the KDP University team, helping authors use the KDP website to make the most of their author journey. But enough about me. We're all here to talk to Andrew. Andrew Watts started writing in 2012 as a way to occupy free time while deployed on a US Navy aircraft carrier in the Middle East. Drawing from his experience in the military first and working in brand management for one of the most successful consumer goods companies, Watts has become a successful author and publisher. Owner of Severn River Publishing, which has published titles for over 20 authors, Watts lives in Ohio with his family and uses discipline and business acumen to turn his projects into successful reality. Welcome, Andrew.
Hello, and thank you.
How are you doing this morning?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited to talk to you about your publishing journey.
Thank you.
I want to start off by saying thank you so much for your service. You started out in the military, right?
That's correct.
And that's where you started writing?
That is the first time that I tried to write a novel, yes.
Were you successful?
No, I was not. So I was in the military. I joined the military in 1999. So I went to the Naval Academy, and then I went to flight school, became a helicopter pilot. It was my third deployment that I did. So this was on an aircraft carrier in the Middle East, and like you had mentioned, there were moments there where I had free time, and I tried to write a novel. I think I got about 50 pages in. And then just, coming back to 2 kids and, getting out of the military, there was a lot going on. So I shelved that until a few years later.
Okay. So what brought you back to writing? Because this is a common story that we hear.
Sure.
Somebody starts writing and then pauses because life takes over. What made you come back?
Sure. Well, my job when I got out of the military was in brand management with Procter & Gamble. So, and they hire about 50 what they call ABMs every year. So those are 50 marketers in North America every year, and it's a company of at the time it was about 120,000 people. So it was very small group, and a lot of the other marketers were Harvard MBAs or Duke MBAs, and I was like, I can fly a helicopter, so. Very different background, but one of the things they did, I think, because I had a little bit more experience, they put me in a section of the company where my job was I was the only ABM without a brand. So most people work on, some of these major household names that you're used to, toilet paper or deodorant or shampoo or something like that, that you're familiar with. And I was in the section of the company called New Business Creation, and I had about 20 projects in the time I was there, and every project had the same goal, and it was build a new $1 billion brand, with a goal of, in year 1, we're going to launch at $50 million, and we're going to have this great idea that people are going to love. And it was an extremely interesting job. And looking back, I'm very, I think, blessed that I had that opportunity, because it taught me a lot of skills. But out of the 20 projects that I had, I want to say maybe one of them made it to market and the other 19 got shut down. So it was also very frustrating to put so much energy into all these businesses and not have it grow and be able to have full control to make sure that it actually launched. And that was one of the reasons I took that job, is because I wanted to kind of lead a business. And so I think that as an outlet for that, maybe frustration, I took the 50 pages, I dusted them off that I had written on the aircraft carrier. And I had a friend that she was working on a novel as well, and we were talking about it. And she suggested that, hey, if you did 50 pages, you should definitely keep going and try and do the whole thing. So I got that encouragement as well. But so it was while I was working in that job, and it was kind of an outlet that, hey, I've heard about self-publishing. I've heard about how people had been successful using KDP, and I wanted to give it a shot, see if I could write a book, put something out there. And it was mainly just a hobby when it first started.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds to me like you kind of went into this not as I want to write and be creative and stuff like that. That was a great byproduct, but it was more, I want to build a business.
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of what I was learning in my day job, if you will, digital marketing skills, brand building, product development. I worked with a lot of product researchers and product development scientists that were helping to develop these products, and some great marketers that taught us to look at kind of marketing as a end-to-end activity. So from the design of the product, you have to match what people want. You have to develop the product, knowing what people want. And if you can do that, it's a lot easier to sell something that people want rather than, just write something and see if it works,
Right. Throw it up against the wall, see if it sticks, kind of a thing.
Exactly.
So how long did it take you to finally finish that first book and then start employing the marketing techniques?
So one of the, again, that job, I think I was using what I had learned in that job. One of the things we did, they called it a TLE, I think, a transactional learning experiment. So they believed in, going to market with the kind of minimal viable product, just testing that out in a test market. So one of the things I did at first, and I think I took a page off Hugh Howey's playbook, where I wrote a novella and I launched that, and I just learned. And I think, the first novella ended up being probably the first 25% of my first book. So I wrote that. I didn't know how it was going to end. I thought it was pretty good, and I published it, and I think I got 4 reviews. I was super excited about that. One of them was my mom. It was not a 5-star review, which, she's a Catholic school teacher, like grades really hard. So what can you say?
Thanks, Mom.
Another was the best man at my wedding. One of the reviews was best man at my wedding, and he was scared that Amazon was going to know that it was him, so he used his dog's name as the reviewer. So I was like, Jeff, it's fine. So that I tested and I learned, and then one of the things I learned was that people in the military thriller genre don't like novellas as much as they like full novels. So I had to continue to complete that book, and then I put out, the 3 other novellas that made that first book, and then I just scrapped the novellas and launched it as a book and kept it that way. And I learned my lesson, and I've only written novels since then.
How often do you publish? I mean, how long does it take you to write a novel and then successfully publish it?
So before I started Severn River Publishing, I was writing probably about 3 books a year, I think. I did that for a short period of time because then I started the company. I think I could probably do that. I think I could probably write 3 to 4 books a year if that was all I did. Now, I think my pace is about 1 per year, just because it is taking up a ton of time to do everything else that goes along with. I think when I was doing it full time, so I left Procter & Gamble job in 2017 to write full time. And I was spending a ton of time doing marketing and running the business. What I realized is I need help. So that was one of the reasons that I initially started the publishing company. Was I was worried, 1, about the swings of up and down sales, and 2, about just spending all my time not writing. So really, it was kind of a efficiency solution to get there. And now in doing that, I think I opened up Pandora's box for myself, because now I'm doing all that work that took so much time for 20 plus people right now. So, but we've managed to get great people in to help out with that.
So do you write at all right now, or is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So I have a series. It's the first book is Firewall. I think you had it in the intro. So my current series is about artificial intelligence, and it's kind of a spy thriller, and it deals with the dawn of artificial general intelligence. So this super intelligence that is going to rapidly, I think, and based on a lot of experts, it will rapidly exceed the intelligence of human beings. And talking about, as we approach that point, how do people react? How do, global intelligence agencies, nations, powerful people, how do they react knowing that the world is about to meet that singularity, if you will?
Right, right. So let's talk a little bit about how you transitioned some of the learnings that you used in marketing to start building that business. Because I think that we have a lot of newer authors that are sitting there going, how do you do that? How do you take publishing a novel and turn it into a publishing company? What does that look like?
Yeah, to turn it into a publishing company, I think there's a lot that goes into that. So I think the first step is going to be have money, have steady cash flow, or have a cash reserve that you're able to. I mean, that's starting a company. If you're gonna start a burger franchise, you need cash to buy all your supplies, to pay your employees, to make sure that you're able to run operations. So I think for us, the cash, again, is used for payroll, but also advertising. So advertising is the way that I think KDP authors, if your book was in a bookstore, you're not paying for eyeballs. The number of eyeballs depends on the foot traffic in the store and the shelf placement. How many shelf placements do you have? What shelf is it? Is it the front of the store or buried in the back? In the digital marketplace, we are paying for impressions, and then depending on how good our product is, that will determine how many clicks we get, and the click-through rate, and the conversion rate, and all that, how good the description is. So I think if you're talking about building a company, you really, it depends on. I would start small, and you're going to need to find a great employee to help you out. So I think the starting point would be find a publisher who's able to do all the work in KDP and understands it, and understands the importance of accuracy, and all the different implications to what back matter do you use, and how does that, what landing page do you send them to, and how important is the copy and imagery that you use in that back matter. Do you have links in the front matter? What do those lead to? Do they encourage audio purchase as well? When you do get to that landing page from the back matter, what does that landing page look like, and what are you encouraging? Are you encouraging repeat sales of the next book in the series, or are you encouraging email signups so that you grow your organic list of true fans? And I think that there's different pros and cons to the choices that you make, but one of our mantras is always be testing. Always test, learn, and then scale it across the business as we develop winning tactics.
So let's talk about that. I think you're starting to allude to it a little bit. When you bring on a new author, right, and you want to start building their brand and building out a marketing scheme for them, can you walk us through some of the steps that you take in order to do that?
Sure. I think one of the first things that we do is make sure that the cover, the description, the title are genre appropriate. So I think that when people aren't searching for you, and you are paying to get those eyeballs on your product, you want to make sure that you have product concept fit, that you are matching what the consumers are expecting to see with what the product actually is. So usually, a lot of times, what we see when we take on new authors is that we need to make modifications to the cover so that the packaging is appropriate to what the readers are searching for. And sometimes we change the titles, and then we almost always change the descriptions to make sure that we're improving the conversion rate and encouraging trial, encouraging people to try out the book for the first time. So, and that has secondary benefits. You know, if we have $1 of advertising aimed at trying to get a book, and we change a cover, description, title to increase the conversion rate, that dollar does a lot more work for us, and then we can put more dollars in. You know, so.
What are some of the things that you look for when you talked about you want to make sure it matches the brand and you always change the description? What are some of the key things that you look for every time, you know, you do that? Like, what are some of the changes you immediately do to the cover? What are some of the changes?
As far as the cover goes, I think one, you want to know what other covers in that genre are selling well today. What kind of font and style, text style, you know, the like lighting effects and everything. What do those look like? Because that is communicating, you know, if readers are associating that with the genre today and those are selling well today, you know, it's generally working. You can also look at what's worked in past decades, because I think the golden age of print books and a lot of the big authors today were also selling really well decades ago, the traditionally published ones. And so I think that people do associate a lot of those fonts and everything. The Trajan font, I think, is often associated with the legal thriller, for example. So a lot of those still do communicate the genre effectively. And then the imagery, is that appropriate to the suspense genre or the legal thriller genre or the historical fiction genre? We have been lucky to work with some really great cover designers, and if you can match up great artwork with the genre, I think that can go a long way as well, because then you can both be genre appropriate and stand out as premium.
What about the description? What are the changes that you usually see? Like, you go in, you take on, and you're like, okay, we need to change this or add this.
I think that one of the important things is to write copy that is clear and that makes the reader want to find out more. So you know, books should not, in my opinion, end on a cliffhanger. I learned that the hard way with my first book, but I think book descriptions absolutely can and probably should in most cases end on a cliffhanger, because that is something, you know, if you just find it really interesting, you have to know what happens. That's a great way to get people to try it out. So I think that writing, you know, easy to read copy, even just, you know, if you've got a block of 5 paragraphs with no indentation and you know, just a ton of text, it's hard to read. So if you can kind of space that out and use easy to read language, I think that helps you out a lot. And also, you know, if there's a hook tagline or maybe credentialing, like if you were a Wall Street Journal bestseller, for example, that can help. If there is a blurb from a well-known author, especially a well-known author in the genre, I think that could be important as well. But we've tried different things. Again, we try to test that out a lot. I've seen different types of descriptions work, and but those are the kind of things that we would look at.
Right, and I think that's an amazing call out, is test. You know, coming from a marketing background, you and I both know you just keep testing things, because something that worked 5 minutes ago is not going to work now, right? It's that kind of change.
Yeah, I liken it to fishing in different ponds. So even, you know, a lot of the advertising we do, my sponsor product, Amazon advertising sponsor product has a certain book title with a certain keyword. It might work really well at first, but you know, if that's a small pond and then you fished all the fish out of that pond, eventually it will not be as effective. So I think that goes back to what we were talking about initially, is, you know, what kind of product are you developing? Are you developing a product that has a huge audience and is, you know, highly attractive to a very wide audience, or is it more concentrated, because that will determine, I think, a lot of the potential a lot of times.
Okay. Now, you alluded to earlier that the front and the back matters, and we don't talk about that very often. So I'd love to dig into that a little bit. What are some of the things that you typically put in your front matter for all the books?
Front matter, I'm not 100% sure how important front matter is compared to back matter. I would say that back matter is more important, and that just the only reason I say that I do think it matters. But if you had to make me choose between one or the other, I would choose back matter.
Okay.
But we try to encourage if we have an audiobook, we try to encourage audiobook purchase because of the way I believe there are discounts. Like if you're in Kindle Unlimited, I think you can get the audio version for free in some markets with Audible Plus. Is that what it's called? So I think there are. Sorry, I'm getting into the weeds.
That's
I think
okay.
it can be advantageous. I think you can get a discounted copy. So that's one of the reasons that if they're just bought the book. So a lot of times if I buy a book, I might buy it in multiple formats because I like to read it on a walk, but then maybe at night I'm reading on my phone or on my Kindle or something like that, and I want to pick up where I left off, and I love that feature. You can give me the advertising fee later on for that.
Okay, I'll totally.
Yeah.
We'll follow up.
I think so. We want to encourage that right at the beginning because it's most enticing for the reader if they just bought the copy and they haven't started and they're going to get the full value out of both formats. That's when we try to encourage, hey, you can also buy this on audio, and then it'll with Whisper Sync or something, it will sync up.
Yeah.
In the back matter, again, we try to encourage email signups and repeat purchase of next book in series, or if it's the final book in series, something else that we think might be relevant to that consumer.
Okay. So do you publish in all formats, paperback, ebook, and audiobook for all the books?
Yeah, we don't publish audiobooks for all of our books because it is somewhat prohibitively expensive, and you don't always see the returns. We would love to. I think one of the biggest hurdles for us is we don't have the ability to advertise audiobooks the same way we do ebooks and print books. So when that opens up, I think you will see us put a much higher emphasis on audiobooks, and we will be producing more audiobooks. But right now, that is a little bit of a hurdle. I think for a lot of our authors, we do have audio as well, and we like to at least acquire the rights for audio with the hopes that we will do it. And if a lot of this, and in some cases, if we have decided not to do audio production, then we will return those rights.
Okay. All right. So now we have the brand going. We have the book published with the front and back matter. Talk me through a book launch. What does that look like?
Sure. So I think a book launch for us, we encourage we like to encourage series. So we produce series for the most part because we think that is the business model that works best on Amazon and in the ebook world. Today's consumers are binge series consumers. I don't know about you, but my wife watched Bridgerton, and I may have been in the room while she watched Bridgerton. I can neither confirm nor deny that. But
we won't hold you to it.
Right, yeah. But people love to start one thing and just keep going through the whole series, right?
Yep.
So I think really a book launch for us starts if most of our books are not book ones. Most of our books are the sequential books. So it starts the day that previous book was launched. And in the back matter, we're going to encourage people to pre-order that next book. So we always try and have a book on pre-order, even if it's a year out. We'll have that next book in the series on pre-order because I think that gives us the highest chance. If we don't do that, we might lose some purchases. We might lose some potential readers. So I think that's where it starts. Is we put it on pre-order. So that requires prior planning as far as making sure you have a cover and you've got some description for that next book in series. You've got to make sure you're working with the author to make sure that editors are scheduled at the appropriate time, and that you feel confident and they feel confident that they're going to get the manuscript ready so that it can get to editing in time. So a lot of it is planning, and that's where having, I said, hey, you asked what is the first step of growing your own publishing company. I think one of the things you have to do is have a really good publisher that is a great project manager and is able to make sure all those schedules, juggling multiple editors, multiple cover designers, multiple authors, and all the interlockings. For example, we don't want to have a launch, if we can help it, on the same day as another, if it would potentially cannibalize sales. But so that, I think that's step one is put it on pre-order. Let's say it's a book 2 in a series, a couple of weeks out, we will add it onto some of our advertising campaigns. We'll make sure that we're encouraging more eyeballs on the more impressions for that title. Once we might mention the pre-order in some of our cross-promotion email newsletters that we put out. We have a publisher-wide newsletter that we put out for mystery and thriller fans. We might mention the pre-order there. We try to have all formats synced up for launch. If we are doing an audio format, we try to do that ahead of time so that we have it synced up for launch. The paperback, the hardcover, ebook, audio, everything launches on the same day. And then we have a sustained campaign through multiple advertisers. So, Facebook ads, Amazon ads, multiple ad types, and really try and get relevant advertising. So we make sure that the appropriate keywords and product categories, appropriate campaign types are all aimed at that title. Mm-hmm. And then the cross promotion goes a long way. I think that I think one of the reasons that some of our authors have been successful is because we are growing organic email lists of fans of that genre. So if we have a historical fiction series, for example, and we've got multiple historical fiction authors, because we're growing that historical fiction fan base, we can launch successfully multiple historical fiction series that maybe mm-hmm. one is a totally new author, but because we've got that existing fan base, we're going to give them a higher chance of success. So we'll do the newsletter blasts, we'll do a sustained paid advertising campaign. We'll make sure that author's email and social media is mentioning that book, and then rinse and repeat.
Right. So I apologize. I might be having some audio issues. I apologize. So if it's kind of breaking up for you, let me know.
I can hear you just fine.
Okay. Okay, good. All right, perfect. So the next thing is, let's get into those advertising. You were talking a lot about advertising and different advertising. How do you determine where you're advertising and how you're running the campaigns? You talked about keywords and categories, and that's two things that people are like, how do you know what's the right keyword? How do you know what's the right category?
Yeah, and so this is where I think, because KDP is a great self-publishing platform. You can absolutely do it yourself, but I think this is an area that we really add a lot of value as a publisher, because I was spending all my time trying to manage this for my own books, and it was taking away from my ability to write. So what we've done is we've developed some proprietary tools. We've hired some data scientists and worked on some tools to help us analyze some of that. Now the challenge is because we've tried hiring ad agencies, because especially when you scale it, or if you try and get really good and squeeze every last % of return on investment out of the advertising. The challenge is, there's two challenges. One is Kindle Unlimited. It is not, until recently, it was not even, there was no attribution data given for Kindle Unlimited for different advertising campaigns. Now the KDP version of Amazon advertising does have that. And then the other thing is read through. If you're selling a series, you need to take that into account. So we've done a lot of work to develop tools that will help us make better decisions on those keywords. But I think, if you're talking about starting off, I think the easiest thing to do is probably do a sponsored product campaign as an auto ad. And so that is one of Amazon's most basic campaigns. it's going to, look at your product, look at the sales history, look at the attributes of that product, probably the description, the title, and it will advertise, it will show the product category. It will show impressions to people that Amazon advertising, their algorithm thinks that are appropriate. And from that, and from the data that you get from that, you're going to start to be able to harvest certain keywords. So you'll be able to go into your search term report and see, for me, for example, maybe I would show up getting an order from another thriller author. And so then I would take that thriller author's name and create a manual campaign and use that. In that way, I can have a more controlled cost for that particular keyword. But it does get a little complicated. I think it would probably take more time than we have here to go into every aspect of the strategy. But
Right.
I think for newer authors, that's where I would start, is an auto campaign. Then look at what keywords you're performing well for. The other thing I would do is look at your comparable authors. Look at what authors you think are similar to you and are in the genre, and maybe use some of their names or some of their book titles. You can also use search terms that you think are relevant, like mystery books in World War II or something, I don't know, and put that into a manual campaign. Yeah.
So if an author doesn't have the opportunity to work with a publisher on all of these things, you talked about cross promotion. What's the best way for them to take advantage of doing something similar with other authors?
So I think it's a little painful. So I don't like asking other people for favors, but I think when you're first starting out, the best path forward is trying to find other authors that are kind of at a similar sales level to you, that might be in a similar situation to you in the same genre, that have relevant readers and a similar sized email list. Make friends with them and do a cross promotion with them. So that's something that I think all indie authors either do or have done in the past, the vast majority of us. And I think that is how a lot of people got their start. I still will cross promote a couple of people that I've become close with over the years, that I think are, if I think their books are relevant to my readers, that's something I'll do. But I would say that's the best way to do it, is just, network with other authors that are in your genre and reach out to them. And it's painful, and I would not recommend reaching out to the absolute top seller in your genre if this is your first book. But I would recommend trying to, network with people that are kind of at the appropriate level. And I only say that because the top sellers, they get kind of accosted all the time by people that want them to read their book. And I think your chances of success will be lower if you do that.
All right, we have some questions about, are you accepting new manuscripts? How do you talk about a little bit about the process and how you accept new authors?
Yep. So we have a submissions editor, and we've got multiple publishers, editors, and agents that we have used to help us sift through our submissions. But the easiest way to do it is to go to our website, severnriverpublishing.com, and there's a submissions page, and it outlines our submissions process there.
So we've got some questions that have been coming in. So let's take a few of those. So we've talked a lot about the publishing company. When you first started, how much time were you spending on marketing versus writing?
I would say 60% marketing, 40% writing, if I had to give you a number.
Okay.
But yeah, the joke was, and hopefully I'm not going to get kicked off immediately for saying this, but the joke was when we met the Amazon advertising team, we all thanked them for allowing us to quit our day job so we could become full-time marketing managers.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. That's how it works with any business. I mean, all the fun stuff is just a little part. And I don't know, some people find marketing fun. Parts of it I find fun, parts of it I don't. But yeah, a lot of it writing becomes a small amount, and marketing becomes takes over your world.
Yeah.
What employees did you hire first? What roles did you bring on to start building that business?
Sure. So at first it was submissions editor, publisher. Then after that it was a, a financial manager and who also did a lot of bookkeeping. And he is like a utility player. He does everything. Um, lately we have been focusing more on marketing. So I did a lot of the marketing myself, and now we've been lucky enough to grow a bit. So we're building out our marketing team. So we recently hired a marketing director, and we have contracted with different people to like data scientists and different developers, and then we've outsourced some other things. So we've outsourced some of the editing. We hire cover designers, and then lawyer, accountant, the things that every business needs. I spend more time. At first, I spent more time talking to lawyers and accountants than I thought I ever would. So that was not what I expected, but it was needed.
Yeah, accountant's my favorite. I'm like, you get to deal with all these numbers.
Yep.
All right. Who's in charge of the editing? When you bring on an author, do you have editors that you have on staff, and then you're like, okay, you're going to work with this author, or do they bring their own editors with them?
So we have a team of editors that we continue to get business with. They're mostly on contract, but at first that was done because the volume wasn't low enough that I felt comfortable putting them on as full-time employees. Now we probably could, but they've been on contract. But we have a handful of editors that we continue to give a lot of business to, and we've got them scheduled out for like a year in advance with all of the projects. Same with cover designers. Same with other people that we translators. So we've gotten into like the German market, the French market, trying our hand at translation, and those are also people that you need to schedule well in advance. And it's a very high dollar investment, so a little bit riskier.
Okay. So if somebody's just starting out, they don't have a publisher, what advertising gives them the most bang for their buck? Where should they invest initially?
I would say, I guess it depends on your cash on hand. Like if you're starting at zero and you don't want to invest a lot of money, I would probably just make sure you've got social media and back matter and a website, and then focus on writing the next book. Maybe do a little bit of Amazon advertising, like I said, the auto ads or a manual campaign ad with appropriate keywords. But I wouldn't spend. I would keep the spend low, like $5 a day or something like that, just to test the waters. And if it's not giving you good ROI, I would just turn it off until you can build out your series, and then you'll have kind of the firepower to, as far as like the total value of your product, to be able to turn up the advertising investment.
So I know I'm going to get this question, so I'm just going to ask it. What is a good ROI on Amazon advertising? What do you look for?
I think it really depends on, because again, we look at our total author ROI and we look at the series ROI. So if you're talking about a single product, it depends. So a lot of people will look at ACOS. You might see ACOS for a book one in a series anywhere from in the 100s to the 500% range, and the 500% range might be more valuable to you than the 100% range, because maybe the 100% range book only has one book in the series, whereas the 500% ACOS book had 20 books in the series. And so you're really talking about advertising a $5 product versus a $100 product. And so that's the total value that you need to think about.
Do you put a lot of stock in reviews? Do you use reviews at all? Or do you, when you send out newsletters or do product launch, do you talk about community reviews at all?
So I think there's different types of reviews. So there's like the the trade publication reviews. We have been submitting our newer books to some of those trade publication reviews, like Library Journal and Booklist and things like that. It's not a huge part of our marketing plan, but it is something we want to do, just to encourage the library channel and bookstore. We think it could possibly make a difference there. But I think a lot of our strategy is we want to do really well in the Kindle marketplace. And so I think that those matter less in the Kindle marketplace. I think what matters there are the total number of reviews that you have and the star rating. And so that is something that we definitely encourage. We will give out ARCs to our fans ahead of time in some cases, and encourage them to leave a review upon launch, if to help boost the initial sales of the book. So in that respect, reviews are an important part of our marketing plan.
Okay. And you were starting to build the business or writing that you're like, I just can't take these hours and I'm done. How did you stay motivated?
Having a great support system. So I think, the cliche answer, but it's very true, is, my wife supported me throughout leaving my previous job to take the big leap and become a full-time indie author. So that was wonderful. She supported me in growing this business, and then I think the people that were involved in the business itself, we have formed a close bond, and other authors. Jason Casper was involved from the start, and he's another indie author, and we publish him now. He's a good friend of mine, and he has been one of the kind of steadfast sounding boards that I could turn to, and basically I didn't feel bad about having him hear me complain, and he was a great friend for that. But yeah, you need an outlet. So the other thing, sleep, exercise, eating well, all that stuff really matters. I think I would rather work less and make sure I get all those things, because I think that fewer hours working is going to actually be more productive than if I didn't get a good sleep, didn't exercise, didn't eat well, and works twice as much.
All right. Let's see. A lot of what you're sharing can be done as a self-publisher, which is how you started.
Right. Yeah. So, my own books, I was able to leave my job at, a CPG company, a marketing job at CPG. I was able to leave that job, and as an indie author, pay the bills, and support my family in addition to my wife's job. But, we were able to make things work without, if anything, I think things improved for us financially. So it is definitely possible to do that as an indie author. And I think if anything, I just got greedy, and then I decided to go ahead and start a publishing company.
So we've got a couple questions about events and promoting yourself at different events. Do you guys do that? Do you encourage face-to-face events? I know it's really difficult with COVID right now, but yeah. Do you do a lot of those when we can travel?
I think a lot of times our authors will come to us, and they will let us know that they want to do a certain event. So it's not something that we tend to look for. There are a few exceptions. Like, we will submit our books for awards, and some of those do require attendance at an event. But for the most part, I think you're going to reach a lot more people through digital advertising than you will at a single event. It's not a huge part of our marketing plan, let's put it that way.
Okay. So we've got a question here. How long do you think it takes to gather data through the auto ads campaign to effectively make changes to the campaign? How long should you let it run before making changes?
I think you're talking about how many impressions and how many clicks you get. So, the two different ways you can test. You can test it $5 per day for 30 days, or you could, do 5 times 30 for 1 day, and then, see what you get. So it depends on your threshold for, and your desire, how quickly you want to learn, how much you want to spend. So I think for an auto ad, I mean, I don't know that I would probably talk to an Amazon advertising like employee before me, but because we don't turn them off, we just leave them on. And I think the marketplace constantly changes. So you might, they might show to different people, and you'll find that different search terms will work. So I think I don't think that it's necessarily like, hey, use this to test and then turn it off once you get the data, and then use that for other stuff. I would recommend keep the auto ad on, and as you gather information, you can make different choices. Like you could negative exact that keyword and then create a manual campaign as a phrase and exact match type inside the manual campaign, for example. But there's a million different ways to do that. So I probably should not advise just do one over another. And it's the kind of thing that we test, and we try different things all the time too. So.
Okay. All right. I think we have time for about one more question before we'll wrap things up. But when you're working with your cover designers and your editors, what are some of the best practices that you employ to make sure that you are meeting your deadlines, and then in turn they're meeting deadlines?
So, I mean, I think that just, I don't know, it is tough. I understand that life happens and sometimes you go through deadlines. I think this gets to operations management. So if you've written 5 books and you kind of know your pattern of like how much you vary hitting your deadline, or how much you vary how long it takes you to write the manuscript until it's ready for the editor, then you get a better idea of, okay, if the variation is 1 month, then that means I need to build in at least 1 month of buffer time from when my editor is supposed to get the manuscript. For the cover designer, that's a little different because you can do that in parallel with the production of the book. So as long as you don't, set it in winter and have a winter cover, and then halfway through or near the end you decide, hey, you know what, I'm going to make it summer. Then you can give the cover designer a brief up front, and kind of stick to certain criteria, and you can do that in parallel. As far as best practices, just like in working with them, I think editors just understand what you're asking for. There's different types of editing. There's developmental editing. There's copy editing. Line edits is kind of like a heavy copy edit. Proofreading is, I think, separate. So understand what kind of editing that you are looking for and what kind of editor you're working with, and make sure that it's appropriate. And if you need 2 different types of editors, then do that and schedule them appropriately. I would do the developmental edit first, and then obviously go to the copy editor and the proofreader. For cover designers, I would recommend giving them a brief and make sure that they've got, if you want to look like something else, give them a few examples. Make sure that they have experience in the genre, and I would just be. And the other advice I would give for cover designers is, a lot of times, if they're truly good and they're talented, they might know better than you what a good cover is. So I would listen to the advice of the cover designer if they've got a lot of experience and a track record of success with creating good covers.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Again, we
Not a
highly
problem. Okay,
appreciate
thank
it.
you very much.
And happy publishing, everyone.